Hey guys, what's going on? This is K-Dog Cody representing the Outlaw Sports Network here. Just wanted to give you guys a quick hello and a quick update on what you're about to listen to. This is part one of part two series for Off the Rails between myself, Will the Thrill, and Big Benny. My voice sounds a little bit discombobulated. I'm here in Atlanta right now. Just finished up watching opening day between the Braves and the Phillies. My voice is shot. S-H-O-T, capitalize that, exclamation point, whatever you want to do. After watching the Braves walk off against the Phillies in the bottom of the ninth. Coolest thing I've ever seen in my life in a sporting event thus far. Anyways, back to the original topic at hand. You guys better listen to part one of two of Off the Rails, where we talk about opinions of a possible superstar shakeup, end of the brand split pay-per-views, and why takeovers, NXT takeovers, are predominantly better than main roster pay-per-views. You guys do not want to miss this. We go off the rails. That's a part of the brand new series we got going on here in the Outlaws Sports Network. I haven't done a podcast lately, so we figured we'd give you guys something new, something fresh, something different, something off the rails. So guys, please like this video here on Facebook. Share it with your friends on Twitter, Facebook, all of the sorts. Comment on it, what you liked, what you didn't like, and so that way we can have feedback and know what we want to do for future podcasts. Like I said, two parts. The next part's going to be all about WrestleMania, as we are only, at the time of this broadcast and the time of this recording, about a week away almost from WrestleMania, whereas next week's podcast is 3 days away from WrestleMania. So anyways, guys, hope you like it. Hope you listen to it, enjoy it. Like I said, give us feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like. Now as we transition into it, hope you guys enjoy it. It's part one of two of Off the Rails. Welcome, all you Hulkamaniacs and you Honkinators, to a brand new worldwide debut premiere of Off the Rails. As you'll notice in this show, we're going to be very off the rails. Some of these comments are going to be off the rails. But more than likely, at the end of the day, you're going to be off the rails listening to this. So that's how we want to go about it. Joining me on this special momentous occasion, I've got two lads of mine joining me. First, the man, the myth, the legend, Will the Thrill.
Hello, hello. In the words of the great Eric Bischoff theme, I'm back and I'm better than ever.
That's what I like to hear. Also joining us tonight, making his debut, Old North Strong, we got Off the Rails man himself, Big Ben Bolt.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. And I don't think this is my debut. I thought I was on that other one at...
No, you're making your official Off the Rails and podcast debut.
Oh, okay.
That was a live stream. It's two different things.
Oh, okay. You're right, my bad.
Come on. Gosh. So, guys, got a few topics I want to discuss, as we are only, at the time of this recording, maybe not time, but the date of this recording, we are, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days from WrestleMania. Usually it's the best time of the year. You have WrestleMania coming around. It's usually the biggest time and the best time as far as wrestling fans go. Doesn't matter if people hate or love WWE, they usually watch WrestleMania. People come from all over the world to watch this event. As three people who have attended WrestleMania, I think we can all agree it's basically the best time to be a wrestling fan. Maybe not product-wise, but at least nostalgic-wise. So, we'll talk about WrestleMania in a little while. On a different time, different day. But tonight I kind of want to talk more about maybe a little bit of the aftermath of WrestleMania. And I know we're kind of jumping ahead here, and maybe we're going a little bit too far before we actually get to the WrestleMania stuff. But some things I want to talk about is like the rumors and possibilities of a superstar shakeup that may be happening after WrestleMania. One big topic that I think is going to be pretty momentous here after WrestleMania is the end of the brand split pay-per-views, how that's going to affect the product, and how that's going to affect both brands. And then finally, we will end it on why takeovers are predominantly better than main roster pay-per-views. Should be very fun and interesting topics here. So let's get started. What's your guys' opinion on the possible superstar shakeup happening within the next month, maybe? Whoever wants to chat, give it a go.
So,
Exactly, that's off the rails. That's what I'm talking
He's
about.
got his hand raised. You wanna?
Yeah, he does, but you still have your hand raised
No,
from
I
like
don't.
3 hours ago, so.
yeah, it's
I'll-
stuck. It's stuck
yeah.
raised. It's like you've been having
I
your
haven't
hand up the
clicked
whole
it.
time.
It's still showing. It's weird.
Okay, my bad. I'm sorry.
We're using a podcasting system where you raise your hand, by the way, guys. So we're not physically right beside each other, so that we're not really seeing each other wave hands. Just in case you're getting that visual image of why the hell are they raising hands when
there's
they're sitting right
a
beside
little
each other.
button that we click that says raise your hand. It's for organizational purposes, and apparently,
As you can see, we've already failed at that. So Square Respawn, get these hands. My main man, Will the Thrill, please open up the form.
So, the last superstar shakeup was kind of a big blunder, in my opinion. Drafting Bray Wyatt to Raw, same with The Miz, Dean Ambrose. Drafting these guys to Raw and then kind of not giving enough support to SmackDown really kind of killed it. And taking away the original aspect, the way the draft was in the mid-2000s, where you actually had to get draft picks and you had to be sent over that way, and it was kind of a roulette. You never know who's going to pop up, and it made it a bigger ordeal, and it made brand loyalty a big deal. Kind of having this barely mentioned, kind of forced superstar shakeup that really took a lot of the power and I hate saying the word, but oomph, or the strength that SmackDown had, took it away, and then kind of gave it to Raw, and Raw has kind of blundered a bit with the superstars they got in the shakeup, namely Heath Slater, Rhino. The Miz hasn't gotten as much star power as he had on SmackDown, and then Bray Wyatt has been kind of struggling in the mid card ever since WrestleMania. So, they would really have to impress me with a superstar shakeup this time around. I hope they don't do it at the night after WrestleMania. I hope they wait a week and actually let the fans know that it's coming up, and then actually treat it with a little more gravitas, a little more gravity than they did the last time. I can go into different superstars I want to be drafted in a little bit. I want to give you other two guys a chance to talk about this.
yeah.
Big Benny Bolt.
I
Open
viewed
up
it
to me, bro.
differently. I thought it wasn't as bad. I mean, I was kind of disappointed about, kind of like what Will said about certain guys going to different brands and how they kind of felt like stripped SmackDown of some key guys. And those key guys, like Bray, for example, he's kind of been lost in the shuffle on Raw. But Miz, though, of course, has just been great, in my opinion, though. Although he didn't really need to go to Raw. Although the way I view it, I don't view it as like a draft because it didn't have that vibe. It didn't kind of come off like the draft they had when they restarted the brand split thing over a year ago. So to me, that wasn't really a big deal. I was just like, oh, okay. It's, they're going to move guys around. To me, it came across they were just trading guys. Like the way the promos were and everything, the way they were talking about how, so-and-so we acquired, when they brought over Charlotte and so-and-so went back. So that's the one. I thought it was okay. It was just kind of like Will said, it was a little underwhelming, though. And I think I agree that maybe give some build-up to it will definitely help it, and then maybe make it more of an event instead of, it's just a normal Raw and SmackDown. You kind of got to guess who's going where by who's not there and all that good jazz.
Definitely. I think you guys both have really great, strong points there. I think that the draft itself was a great event, and then the shakeup was just this dull, not much build up to it, just this bland little thing of, oh, hey, this guy's going here, and this guy's going here, or these guys or this girl's going here. Oh, that's great. Um, some things I propose that should happen. I thought they did a fantastic job with the WWE draft back in 2016. They had the actual draft night. It was on SmackDown. They dedicated the whole show to drafting, such like that, and had matches. And like the old days where if you won, your team... it didn't really matter this match because they kept going with the same format of Raw kept getting 3 no matter what, SmackDown kept getting 2, whatever. With the shakeup, excuse me, I'd like to see something where WWE is trying to go towards more of... It's still got the entertainment aspect of it, but they're really trying to portray the sports aspect of it to where, all the major news outlets, sports news outlets, are covering WWE, CBS, ESPN, USA Today Sports, all these, and Bleacher Report are covering WWE, covering the pay-per-views in Raws and SmackDowns. So, and especially with the contracts coming up of USA Network and NBC Universal, and then a lot of people thinking that Raw and SmackDown are heading to Fox Sports. To me, if you're going to be kind of creating more of a sports-themed thing, why not have more of a trade-type thing where the GMs kind of collaborate and say, I want this guy. What would you be willing to give up? I'm not really sure if I want to give up him for a superstar or what, or if you could do a draft. I don't know how you could really implement it, but it's an idea that you could trade draft picks for superstars, kind of like a real sports thing where I get 3 draft picks every round. I'll give you 2 draft picks for Bray Wyatt. I don't think he's worth that right now, but I mean, you get the idea that maybe if they want to push more towards a sports type programming, especially with the addition of Ronda Rousey and some of these guys that they get from the NFL, like Baron Corbin and some more other people like that, maybe they put more of a sports theme to it, to where GMs kind of collaborate with their commissioners or superstars maybe, or whoever, and try to create more of a entertaining, interesting aspect instead of just, oh, we're going to pick this guy, and this guy. And then the other thing I hate is that with the shakeup, they announced some of this stuff on social media. Like, I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact of we didn't get the nostalgic feel of, oh, this guy just got drafted or traded or whatever. It's like, you had to look it up online, and it was like, really? We couldn't, do what they did after the draft where they had another hour and a half on the network and did the rest of the draft. So, but yeah, definitely some cool points there. Anything you want to add to that before we kind of move on, or any one of you? Oh, too slow there. Get these hands.
Oh, I think because it's stuck on my.
You started speaking as soon as you did it.
A raised hand thing, so I didn't.
I can see on mine who has done it, but literally as you started talking, Ben will raise his hand. So
the first salvo.
I'll let Ben go first since Will had the first go around.
So my idea was, I had an idea like that. What you're saying, that's a good idea. But I thought maybe something they could do with it is, because you know how Survivor Series is what they build up to be, Raw versus SmackDown. The last 2 at least. That's like your main competition, and they need to have, like you said, I definitely agree where they should make it almost more sportsy, where you have the GMs trying to negotiate picks and players, and if you're going to trade for a player. A wrestler, and maybe throw in a pick, like you said, 2 picks for a wrestler, and then you could have that wrestler be draft exempt, because why would you make him draft eligible if you just traded for him? That'd be stupid. Although that sounds like something the WWE would do, though. But I did have an idea that if you're going to do that, then they should also incorporate a trade deadline, like a month before Survivor Series or Mania or whatever you want your main competition to be, and then actually build up that the 2 brands are competing again, like they kind of did at first, and then it kind of fizzled out. but kind of bring that back and actually have them actively trying to negotiate with each other. Have Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle trying to work out some deals for picks and players. And then, especially on the trade deadline day, you can make that another special Raw or SmackDown, and have welcome to whatever date Raw, trade deadline Raw, and then you have both GMs there, and then you show behind the scenes stuff, not behind the scenes, but like the backstage promos segments where they're negotiating picks and players, and I think that'd be kind of cool.
Right, literally, let me get this little snippet and then I'll get to you. I know you've been waiting.
It's fine.
To kind of follow up on that, Ben, I think it would be a great idea for the
205
trade
Live.
deadline. Instead of doing it on Raw or SmackDown, this may sound a little... Yeah, right. This may seem a little risque, but I think this could work. You do the trade deadline on a day that doesn't have a pay-per-view. So a Wednesday, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that they're at live events. And usually Raw and SmackDown are in two different towns for two different live events after their TVs. So what you could do is have a network special and have some of your broadcasters, because you got enough of those commentators and backstage interviewers, you can have your main
Center,
station,
trade
like
center,
TSN has their trade deadline station up in their studios. You can have people, you can have Renee Young and maybe Rosenberg, whoever, have them up in the studio in Stamford and have your backstage interviewers, Dasha, and whoever else there is in the world, have them actually go to the live events, get the actual reactions of the guys that get traded. They get traded mid-show, That could be an interesting little spin on it, of the real surprising aspect of it, or, maybe after a match, they get told, hey, you've just been traded. Or as they're coming backstage, they'll say, oh, we have breaking news. Let's go to the Raw event in Indianapolis. Finn Balor, you've just been traded. I know you just had a match, or you're getting prepared for a match. What's going through your mind? That could create a really dynamic aspect through that.
Before you lose
Exactly,
before
yeah.
you lose your thoughts.
Will, go ahead before you I get these hands.
No,
Yeah.
So I see where you're going with having it kind of broadcast on more of a national television aspect, but before you get to that point, I think WWE really needs to up their game in their production value, in their content, to bring some old fans back, to get some new fans right now, because a lot of people, you can just go and see anytime ESPN posts anything about WWE, it's 99% mocked. And if you're going to garner any respect from the fan base from ESPN, you gotta up the ante. You gotta bring it some realism. You gotta bring some, actual intensity. You gotta do something that is going to, shock the system of people believing the whole fakeness, buying into it's not as good as it was, anything like that. And then by the same token, a completely different topic. For me, I think the draft should be started right after their 50-man Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. And if you really want to start it off, since they don't have an actual stipulation or a reward for the winner, make the winner win the first draft pick for his brand. It might not seem like much at first, but if the winner actually gets a say in who gets drafted, then that wrestler has a bigger voice and actually becomes more prominent. And the second thing I think needs to happen is before the draft, I think NXT needs to be elevated to an equal brand. And the reason why I say that is while you can't do, the main card guys, if you could swap mid-card guys to NXT, like a Dolph Ziggler, like a Luke Harper, maybe an old NXT kid, going back to NXT and kind of mixing it up in there, it might bring some more eyes to NXT, and validate NXT as an equal brand. If you can do that, there's a lot more you can do than just, NXT is a developmental territory, and if you're coming up, you're kind of looked down on as a kid or like somebody who's green. When a lot of these NXT guys are coming up and they're really experienced, but there are still some people who, who don't watch NXT, who see NXT as the way NXT was in 2010, or see NXT as a joke or developmental. When NXT has been, like, we're going to get to that later, but has been consistently better than the main roster for the past 3-4 years. So if you can, for the next draft coming up, make NXT one of the 3 brands, imagine having William Regal and Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle trying to barter and trying to argue for different wrestlers. And you could have, whole factions switch sides. You can have tag teams, and you can have individual superstars switch sides. And that would put more eyes on NXT and potentially get NXT a TV deal and still, validate any wrestlers who go over to NXT, because then they can sharpen their craft and then come back with better fan base.
That's really good points. Definitely, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think those are all really, really strong points, and brings up, the fact that people, kind of the way they view NXT, and definitely with the mid-card situation, I think that could also really go into effect and really change people's perspective, and especially that first point you made about stepping up the ante and production-wise, both either on the network or on TV, and get to a level where people more respect them than mock them. Before we get on to our next topic, you got to give me a very solid, strict, straight, no BS answer. If you're the GM of either brand, one person, who are you taking? And why?
Wait, so I have to be, if I was the GM for each brand, I would have to take one person? Or just choose a brand?
Yeah, choose one brand. You get one guy or girl.
It's hard.
Who you taking? And it's not call-ups. It's currently on the main roster. Who you taking and why?
Oh man.
I know I just threw you guys a curveball and you were not expecting that, but
We'll go first.
hey,
I
off
have
the rails,
one
baby.
Person? Like, am I just picking for both brands or just one brand?
I've already got my answer.
Okay.
No, you remember you say whoever it's one brand.
Okay.
So you say, all right, I'm going to be a SmackDown Live general manager, and I want from Raw,
okay.
bam,
I'll
why?
first,
Or
I'll
if
start
you're
with first.
say I'm Raw GM and I want this guy from SmackDown, why?
Wait,
It's
is this
like
considering
you
a call-up
want,
or just
it's
a trade
wish
from
guy,
brand to brand?
Like the guy
No,
everybody
you're just getting
wants,
one
like,
guy from either from one
No.
from the other brand.
Like say like in other sports, everybody
So I can't-
wants
Yeah.
Sidney Crosby, for example.
So I
but
can't get somebody from NXT.
No one can make
No.
that. Shut up.
Currently on the main
No one
roster.
can make McDavid.
Okay.
How about that?
No, they don't.
Ooh.
So I'm going to be, say, Daniel Bryan, and I want Seth Rollins.
Yep, that's a good choice.
For several reasons, but mainly
Yes.
I've said since he turned heel back in 2014, Seth Rollins is a main event talent. Seth Rollins is a title holder to lead a brand, and him being stuck this year in the mid card for so long, and he's elevating the IC title picture, but these jokey promos, these moments where he's not really serious, where he's not taken seriously. Sparkle Crotch, I know it's been a couple years since that, but he has consistently put in work after work, match after match. He's proved himself. SmackDown, give him a fresh start, turn him heel, and turn him loose. And go after guys like Bobby Roode, have a match with Daniel Bryan, get a match with AJ Styles. The things you could do with Seth Rollins if you make him a main event talent on a brand new brand, give him a fresh start.
If I was Kurt Angle.
Good points.
of
Good
Raw,
points. I like it.
I would want the man who claims he built SmackDown Live. I would want the AJ Styles. Think about it.
Don't say
Think
it.
about
Don't
it.
say
No,
it.
think about it. If I was a fan,
Oh
Nothing.
boy.
would piss me off
Okay.
more
He should
than
never,
seeing
ever
AJ
leave SmackDown.
That would create so much, like, you'd be churning the water so much on that, creating so much dust and of rage and confusion amongst the fans, and that's how you get noticed there. and it's a thing that would shock the WWE right now, almost like the Wayne Gretzky trade to the LA Kings. So that's how I envision that. That just for the sheer shock value, and then you could have the dream matches with Seth Rollins if he stayed on Raw or whatnot, and then the other guys like say AJ, Finn Balor, but more of a regular basis, not that one off. So. Well, that's not the point
But
of this.
if you take
That's not
AJ
the
and
point
take
of
him to
this.
Raw, you have to have an equal superstar switch
That's not the point of this.
SmackDown.
Stop putting-
because you can't.
stop putting
that
logic
vacuum
into
of
it.
talent has to be
I'm about
filled.
to go all North Strong.
I know.
Strong
I know.
on the
Sorry.
wax.
Sorry.
He's putting logic into it. Stop putting logic into it. Oh man. See,
Just do it. Just
I
do
had
it.
to I had a solid answer. As soon as I thought this up, I had a solid answer, and I'm second guessing myself. But if I'm a general manager and I want somebody on my brand that's going to give me good enough matches, that's going to deliver, it's going to talk people into the building,
Oh no.
and can perfect his character. I'm
Don't
Daniel
do it.
Bryan. I'm the GM of SmackDown.
Oh, man. Oh god.
I'm taking.
No, I want you to
Don't
go
you say
first. Please
I'm
don't be wrong.
taking him.
No, god damn it.
Who do you think I'm thinking of?
Oh. Okay.
Please no.
Roman Reigns. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Thank
He
goodness.
deserves it too.
I'm keeping kayfabe stronger. No, I'm not taking Roman Reigns. I'm taking The Miz, and I'm making him my WWE champion.
Okay, I buy that.
He has been in that IC title picture for so too long. With his current run as the top heel, in my opinion, of the WWE, the best promo, the best talker, as of right now. I think this guy and his character and his state deserves to have a main event picture and deserves to have a world title run with this character. The Miz of 2011 wasn't really that much of a believable champion, in my opinion. He was that typical sneaky heel of, we always had A-Rod with him, and even had The Rock help him, win his forgettable WrestleMania main event match at 27. The Miz of 2017, 2016, and 2018, I know that just messed up those years, but you get the point. He deserves it.
My only thing with Miz
No.
is that I love him because yes, I love him just as much.
This
as
is not that
you,
kind of show.
But
Well,
it's
what were you going
just
to
that
say?
when he wrestles, I don't feel like any energy from him or any power, if you would, because he doesn't have any dynamic moves or anything. It's just because also too the way they build him and the way they make him, he's not supposed to be like a powerhouse wrestler. He's great on the mic and he's just oozing with charisma that way, but he's not. To me, he doesn't strike me as a dynamic wrestler. Although he is a good wrestler, don't get me wrong. It's just that it's just that's the only thing I see that with the title, the whole WWE title part of it.
Let me ask you to kind of counterpart that, and like I said, we'll move on here in just a second, but to counterpart that, I know you've only been a fan since 31, but you've known a lot. You've come a really long way since then.
Will's going crazy.
And this is not a mark on you, because I know he's your dude, but
Hey,
for both of you, let's be real for this for a second. The Rock.
Ugh.
One of the best on the mic, bar none. You have to give the guy props for that. One of the best wrestlers from a wrestling perspective?
Nope.
No.
I can agree.
He had,
I
the
can
elbow.
agree
He
with
had the spine buster at the rock bottom. That's mainly it. We had maybe a couple other ones. So kind of compare the Miz to the Rock. While I'm always a fan of the Rock for the aspect of what he's done, for WWE. But you look at it from that perspective of it's kind of comparing the same thing. But at the same token, people are like, you know what? I'm okay with The Rock being champion because I at least want to either see him get his ass kicked
That could definitely
for talking so much smack,
that's a very,
or
very valid point.
do the most electrifying
I
move
just
in
think
sports
that
entertainment.
there's a little bit more to it in my mind. But anyway, I'll let Will go. He's raising his hand like crazy.
Look at that. There you go. Yes.
Sorry,
He's been ready for this.
Last word, and then we can move on. First
Take
thing,
it away.
I completely agree with you about. I love the Miz in the ring because he tells a great story. He keeps to his character, but the problem is, I can't think of a whole lot of memorable matches he's had. He had a great feud with Ziggler back in 2016, but a lot of his matches from this year have been very forgettable. It's usually his character building and his mic work that gets him the praise, but I can't really think of a distinctive match that was, 5-star or 4-star or makes me really want to rewatch it, other than save one or two of those Ziggler matches. By the same token, while Miz is a great heel,
Easy.
I still think the best heel on the roster today goes to Alexa Bliss. Just saying.
Yeah.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point, except the fact of I think it's totally ludicrous what they're doing with her and Nia.
Yeah, but to be fair, she delivers on the mic almost every time,
Oh,
and it turns a lot of crap into gold.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. And the way she plays with the crowd and plays along with them is bar none. I agree with that. That's 100% very true. And I think that she does a great job with the mic work. She's a very talented wrestler, and she's my favorite on the women's roster, bar none.
Promo squad.
That'd be interesting if, of course, Miz is married, but if you put Miz and Alexa Bliss as like a little power couple type thing. Not like a power couple, but like I'll scratch your back, you scratch
It was
mine.
awkward.
And let's get our way to the top here, even though Alexa Bliss is already at the top.
Is
That'd
it
be
bad
kinda
that
cool.
I liked the Bliss and Braun for a little bit? That whole little teasing thing they did.
It was very weird, but it was very very funny.
To
I
me,
gotta
it
give him
shows that Braun has really enjoyed being in the character he's been, and he's enjoying what he's doing. And Bliss is just in her element. So they both, who are at their peak of their character, enjoying what they're doing, were able to just do what just have fun with it, and I really like that. Braun is at the peak of his work, and she's at the peak. It's great.
I agree. I mean, I hated the fact they got beat in the mixed match challenge, but
You can't beat Asuka.
no, that's true.
Yep. Moving on.
Yes,
Oh yeah,
they do.
whatever they did with that, I wish they would have kept on Raw because of that aspect for sure.
Oh man.
Switching topics. Went from the Superstar shakeup, so with the brand split, let's continue with the brand split and segue into the rumors that are now starting to become true, that are true. The end of brand split pay-per-views is upon us after WrestleMania. Every pay-per-view after Mania will be a 4-hour pay-per-view, is what I believe is right, and will feature matches from both Raw and SmackDown. I've got some severe opinions on this one, but I've been holding this one in for a little while.
Opening salvo.
However, I'll give Ben Bolt here
I'm
the
mixed on this now. I like
Big Ben Bolt the
that they're
first
getting rid of the
shot
brand split
in the war.
pay-per-views,
I call second
because
shot.
That to me was just getting
Please
a little
do.
much, and sometimes there was they were too close together. So to me, this is good. I like the one a month, and also to my work schedule. Being a little selfish here, I close a lot on Sundays, so sometimes I would miss the first hour and a half of a pay-per-view because I would get home a little late. But with that aside, though, I didn't know that they're going to make every pay-per-view after Mania 4 hours long and treat it like a big four. That's news to me, and I don't know how I feel about that. That's a lot, literally. It's a lot of content. I think that's going to wash out. I mean, given you're going back to the joint pay-per-views, but it feels like they're going to try and cram too much filler in, and it's going to be you're going to have too many piss break matches, if you would.
Will the Thrill follow up, please?
Okay, so first off, I do disagree with you. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of bathroom break matches. I think it'll at least be concise in that sense. But save for the final topic of our podcast tonight, this has got me very heated because while...
Boy, both me and Will are very passionate about this topic here. I'm liking this.
Wait to see me talk about the takeover stuff. But while I enjoy Raw pay-per-views, they've been consistently
I love it.
bland for the past year. I mean, you have had a couple good ones like Great Balls of Fire, and I believe Extreme... Huh? Oh, awful name. Extreme Rules was pretty good too, but SmackDown has been the pay-per-views that I look forward to every month. Sometimes they're lackluster, but to see some of my favorite guys and some really great matches, the New Day versus the Usos, anything AJ Styles touches is gold. Other people I'm forgetting, Bobby Roode. It's hard for me to see that whenever these combined pay-per-views happen, that the guys in the mid to lower card are even going to have a chance anymore. Makes me sad, because at least on the single brand pay-per-views, the minor card got a chance in the pre-show or the first couple matches. And now what's going to happen? If Rusev loses at WrestleMania, is he going to be demoted to the bottom of the card again? What's going to happen to a guy like Aiden English or Ty Dillinger, formerly American Alpha, with Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin? What is going to happen to these guys when they're combined with Raw? Or same thing for Raw, and it really upsets me because we're already having a hard enough time finding places for them on their own shows. So giving them a chance on a mixed pay-per-view, if they're barely going to get an option on the pre-show, if it's not for the cruiserweights, it really upsets me because these guys, bust their behinds month after month, day after day, and they find out that they're going to get, kicked to the curb for pay-per-views and lose out on pay-per-view money and lose out on TV time. And you're risking losing more superstars out of frustration. You're going to get another Austin Aries, and you're going to get another Neville situation where they're going to be more willing to leave and go find work somewhere else because they're not getting treated properly. And they got crowds who are chanting for people's names, and they're not going to chant anymore if they don't see them.
That's what's good.
Yes, sir. That is great points. Both of you make really good points there, even though some may disagree, some may not. I do think there's some good points on both sides there. However, this is taking me back, basically 10 years ago. Being a fan of wrestling since, not to brag, since I was basically born. But going into the Ruthless Aggression era is when I started really remembering things, because I was just a wee little lad as the Monday Night Wars came to an end. But going up to the Ruthless Aggression era and literally starting to truly pay attention to the product, starting at the time of the brand split. I always watched Raw, and I mostly watched SmackDown. I love SmackDown. They had, especially 2003, 2004, a little bit of 05 SmackDown was really good. Raw is usually always pretty good. But just that time period of 02 to 05, almost 06, was just awesome in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. The Capitals just got scored on. Oh, God. That was horrible. Is that going to be the catchphrase of trying to get back on the rails is off the rails? I wonder what the nature who thinks about that. Well, let me tell you something, brother. I don't know what to say. So anyways. I literally stopped watching WWE product in 2009 through literally the whole year of 2009 and a little bit of 2010. WrestleMania 26 is when I started watching WWE again. I fell out of love with it because they ended the brand split, even though they still had Raw and SmackDown and had the titles on different shows. they kept putting people on Raw and SmackDown every week, and it became into the transition of the Raw Super Show. And that got me so frustrated. The fact of, I get it that maybe it's too much production-wise, maybe the stale matches, they're not as fresh of storylines. I get that. But I mean, you've got this supersized roster. And while, yes, it kind of creates a competition of guys of, all right, mid-card, if you're not in the main event picture, and if you're not in the sort of mid-card or tag team picture, you're going to be left without a match on the pay-per-view. So you got to step up your game. The problem with that is, you can only push so many people. You can only do so many things with these main event guys. I mean, you basically can push 1 or 2 guys on a 3-month period, because you're only going to get 4 matches each on a card, if that. You're going to get your women's, your tag team, your U.S., and your world title matches. That'll fill up 8 matches, 4 hours. You may get lucky and get 10. I doubt it, unless you're going to cut some matches here. That means your main card, your top level main card is going to be slim. Your mid card is going to be wide open with very little people going there. And effectively, we're going to go back into the SmackDown being a BS, crappy B show, worse than Thunder ever was. And that's coming from a guy who loved Thunder. To basically people always going on, the same shows, and it's meaningless. I don't want to see the end of the brand split in general. I do agree that, that there's been some repetitive matches on these brand split pay-per-views. I get that. But, man, it's just like with the cruiserweights. Now they're totally out of the picture, basically. Unless you have to give them, a kickoff show, and they're not going to take a kickoff show every single pay-per-view. Which my whole thing about that is stupid in general, because you're going to make a 205 Live, and that's after SmackDown. Like, people aren't stupid. And then you're going to have him on Raw. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. But that's one thing I should have done. Is Dan O'Brien should have said, hey, I want the 205 Live. I want the Cruiserweights. But anyways, that's my thoughts on that. It's just, I find it that it's WWE is starting to do the same thing they did before with the brand splits, and instead of this being a 7-year project, it was a 2-year project, and now it's starting to slowly transition back into what it was, where every brand was on every pay-per-view, and it just created less opportunities for some of these guys. Braun, man.
My big concern also is the brand rivalry. If they're both on the same pay-per-view and they're both, hanging out together, so to speak, then what's going to happen come Survivor Series or Money in the Bank when they're feuding? I mean, it doesn't make sense why they wouldn't have been feuding the whole time. Going back and watching replays and clips of the old days when Raw and SmackDown hated each other, and they would attack each other and verbally berate each other, and now the only time of the year that they actually care about each other is Survivor Series, and then the rest of the time it's like they don't exist. Trying to fuse those 2 pay-per-views together and make 1 pay-per-view a month, it makes no sense anymore, because now why are they rivals if they're just sharing the same pay-per-view? They're sharing the same locker room. If Raw is going on right before SmackDown, and what's going to happen, like you said, to the perception of SmackDown, because SmackDown's still suffering from the B show syndrome that it was getting in the late 2000s, when everyone was like, why watch SmackDown when SmackDown's the B show? It's the worst show. People constantly said, watch Raw because SmackDown's a weaker show. And it's suffering because of that. People still call it that, and it's still called that on television today, B show. And yet SmackDown has some of the best, athletes in the WWE, but it doesn't matter because the perception is still there. So when it comes to a shared pay-per-view, Vince still sees Raw as the flagship show, and he's unwilling to shake that viewpoint. And so if he has to share airtime with SmackDown, guess who's getting the shaft? SmackDown. Yep. So even if he loves AJ Styles for all the money he's bringing in, AJ Styles is not going to main event a shared pay-per-view with Raw if Raw has Brock Lesnar on the main roster.
No, that's a whole different topic. Oh boy.
You know,
If
if it's John Cena, and if John Cena is not facing AJ Styles, John Cena's main eventing the pay-per-view. AJ Styles is always going to go second to last.
Yep.
You know, there are so many guys who are going to get, put down the card because they have to be compared to Raw. And if Raw is seen in Vince's eyes as better than SmackDown, regardless of what SmackDown's doing or who SmackDown has, then they're always going to be second best, no matter how hard they work. So it makes the SmackDown mid-card and lower card work even harder. And yet you still got the barriers that they had to face of what the people are writing for them and the freedoms they're not given to be creative superstars. And it frustrates me because if they had a small amount of the freedoms that WWE superstars had in the late 2000s to mid 2000s and freedom to do what they wanted to do and be the superstars they can imagine to be, this would be a whole different ball game.
Oh,
Whole different ball game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we might not have as many superstars because a lot of them would probably give up because they realize maybe I'm not cut
getting
out
nowhere.
for this.
I'm not going to get anywhere.
But the ones who step up their game, who are given the freedom to create, like I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but the Velveteen Dream. Look at the work he's put into that one character.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone kind of made fun of him during Tough Enough, but he was the only guy who didn't win and still has been on constant pay-per-views for NXT.
Absolutely.
And yet he is getting cheered out of the place like crazy because he has creative freedom. He's able to work with the character and do what he wants, and the crowd loves him for that. But yet, if he were to come up to main roster right now and be on SmackDown, and then they do a combined pay-per-view, he's going to be at the bottom of the card at best. He won't get a title shot for months.
I was going to say, I mean, he'd be lucky to even get on the kickoff show.
And he'll start getting booed, and he'll be getting the Bobby Roode treatment where he's kind of like mildly cheered, kind of overly gimmicky, and not the character that we know and love. And it's NXT stars are suffering from that right now on SmackDown. Ty Dillinger, the Bludgeon Brothers are still struggling with, not getting a good reaction. Shelton Benjamin, he's not on NXT, but Chad Gable and him are not getting the reaction they're supposed to be getting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but if SmackDown, which is already struggling with image problems, combines with Raw, which is, the beloved favorite show of Vince, SmackDown's going to suffer. And I hate to say that.
It's true, though. I mean, it is true. It won't be until Vince is dead that SmackDown will be a prominent show. Even if Triple H is given creative control over SmackDown, it's still going to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Vince is going to say, even though you got creative control of the show, it can't be as good or better than Raw.
Y'all
it can't be as prominent. Well, Vince, you got to do something here to make SmackDown really relevant. So, I mean, really good points for sure.
Y'all did pretty good, I'd say. I have nothing.
Old North Strong. You got anything else to add on that one? Well, thank you so much, sir. Well, getting on to the next topic, and one of the main points of this that I cannot wait to hear get these hands. I can't wait for this boy to get his hands on this topic. That's why you going last.
Fine.
Since I went last on mine, you got to go last on yours. He's going to be the headliner, the main eventer. Takeovers. NXT takeovers from its inception in 2013, 2014?
14, I believe.
With what, Arrival?
No, because Takeover officially started in Brooklyn.
Well, that's true. So I can't say really NXT
pay-per-view in general
but
started with...
But takeovers.
Yeah.
Since 2014 with NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 1, it seems every single takeover easily surpasses the main event roster that weekend. The only times that it may not is maybe a Royal Rumble, and that's only because of the Rumble aspect. It outlasts SummerSlams, Survivor Series, and, sad to say, WrestleManias. So, why is that? Why are takeovers better than main roster pay-per-views? Why do they get the
I
better
think. I was
reviews
thinking about this
than
earlier,
these
'cause
main
this is
roster
not
pay-per-views?
an easy
What is
one
it that
for
the
me
main
because
roster isn't doing,
to
maybe
talk
that the
about, but
takeover or NXT is doing?
My first thing that came out to
Um,
me, that came to my mind when I was thinking about this was
So, yeah. Big Ben, take it away.
how many matches there are. There's like what maximum normally 4 matches in Takeover? 5? Okay. And what's the average card look like for normal Raw or SmackDown pay-per-view? Yeah, normally almost 10 sometimes. 10 if you do count the pre-show matches. So to me, that
5.
right off the bat
Usually 5.
tells you that the matches are normally better quality on takeovers, and that's normally true without a doubt,
8.
in my opinion. Like when we watched Takeover in Orlando, when we were watching, night before WrestleMania, that was the first Takeover and at that point I watched in a while, and I was just astonished by the quality of the matches. And then of course I've watched a few of the other ones since then, but that was the first thing that stood out to me, was just the quality of matches. Every match had my attention throughout the whole thing. Every match felt like it meant something. Every match had, like, weight behind it, So, that to me is the first bit. And then, too, I think the structure and it's the presentation, to me, it was kind of more old school. It's like, okay, here for not necessarily just a show, but you're here for the wrestling first, foremost, not... I mean, yeah, you are there for the storyline and everything, but for me, it's just the quality of the matches. That is what stuck out to me, and what I couldn't really get past is that's why I would like watching takeovers over normal pay-per-views. You have, yes, your story progression and all, and that's important too, and Takeover just, in my opinion, does that better in general, but it's just that you can't deny, though, that you're getting a better product as a whole, but it starts with the foundation that is wrestling, and that's the matches.
It's a good point. Definitely a good point there. That's one of my main points, was definitely that of the just sheer amount of matches that go into a main event card versus an NXT. That does definitely
1,000.
It gives them a little bit more freedom to be a bit more creative in their matches and go a little bit longer in some cases. Another thing I think is, and I hope I'm not stealing any Will's. I'm sure I'm not. I'm sure he's got like 17 lists of things of he's ready to just blast off on. It just seems to me that guys in NXT are more driven than main roster guys, and like they have something more to fight for. They want main roster time. They want to be up in the main roster. They want to get the more crowds, the larger crowds. They want to appear on WrestleManias and the Rumbles and Survivor Series and stuff like that. You look at guys like in the first takeovers, you had Sasha Banks and Bayley, that basically was match of the night for Takeover 1. And that was right after Finn Balor, or this was right before Finn Balor and Samoa Joe in the ladder match. But I mean, the event started off with Liger and Tyler Breeze. I mean, even the old timers, it's like, hey, we just tied the game. Lars Eller, look at that, look at that. All right. So, anyways, I just think these guys got a lot more to prove. They have a lot more to fight for main roster time, for TV time, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I have not watched an NXT show in a while. But it just seems like there's not. I mean, you don't get the same people every single week. You got some jobbers facing your top guys. You've got maybe some of the same tag teams, some of the same women, but it's an hour show on the network, so you're very limited on TV time. So what of it you do get, if you're not a champion, you got to make up for it.
Right before
so
Will gets into it.
I just think that they're so much more driven to
I want to just go
better
off the rails
themselves,
for a second.
be the best they can be, get up to the main roster, get up to a first a pay-per-view.
Is I could see that too. To me, yeah,
so
they're more hungry.
And
that's
how
I'm about to go off the rails here, is relating it to, say, the NHL would call up players, your AHLers, the young guys that want that shot, and even I can relate it even more to the Hurricanes, with two of our top prospects getting called up with Valentin Zykov and Warren Fogle. Both those guys, ever since they got called up, have been dynamite. Zykov's got 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists, and 3 goals, 1 assist in 2 games, and Fogel's got 2 goals and 1 assist in 2 games. So you can see their hunger. They outworked the other team. They are outworking their line mates even. That's saying something depending on what line they're on. So just wanted to go off the rails a bit right there and relate that to what you were saying about how NXT guys are driven. I was relating NXT to the AHL. So, all right, I'm done. Exactly. We're about to get these hands.
There you go. We got to go to the main event here. I cannot wait for this. Will the Thrill, the time is yours. Just like they give it to the Hall of Famers when you're in the main event of the Hall of Fame. Yeah, the time is yours. Go all as long as you want. Grace us with your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, I need all of you right now to buckle your seatbelts, grab some popcorn, and hold on to your seats because this is about to get crazy.
Well, even though it is April, it is no longer WrestleMania season to me. It is TakeOver season. And every TakeOver special, I don't care what people say, it is better than the main roster. I loved the Royal Rumble. I love WrestleMania. But TakeOver always steals a show for me. And I'm looking forward to certain WrestleMania matches. We're going to get into that soon, next week. But TakeOver has always had my heart. And I'm about to go into it. Why? Because TakeOver gives time for the rivalries, gives time for the matches. And, it's shorter. It's only 2 hours. Sometimes it goes 2.5 hours. That doesn't matter. The point is, they're concise. They keep it to 5 matches, no more, no less. And they let the fans get involved in the match. The fans actually feel they are involved in those wrestlers' lives. They get to kind of choose the wrestlers they want to build up. They choose the wrestlers that when they cheer for somebody, that is looked on, and they push that wrestler. The fans actually get to support their wrestler, and they watch the wrestler they support rise to the top. And look at Velveteen Dream. He started off at the bottom, kind of as a weird gimmick, but because the fans got behind him, he rose through the ranks. He is now a top player. He's not in the main event picture for this next pay-per-view, but guess what? He's on the rise, and he will have a title match soon. You look at guys like Johnny Gargano, and you look at guys like Roddy Strong, Aleister Black. They get to feel the support from the fans, and they get to rise to the top, and they get to have their time in the sun, and they get to perfect their characters. And that is something that the main roster guys don't get a chance to have. They're scripted to the T, and they are limited to what they can do in the ring, what they can't do in the ring. And when you restrict somebody and their creative power, their creative ideas, then they're not going to blossom. They're not going to grow. And yet NXT lets their wrestlers grow, lets them experiment with different things, let them try new things, and they get time to grow and become better. Look at the story of Andrade Cien Almas. Through the different NXT TakeOver matches he's had, his first one was okay. He became a very bland, good guy character. People didn't really cheer for him. But as soon as he turned heel, as soon as he got with his manager, he skyrocketed. The fans may not have cheered him as much, but when they booed him, you knew they had a good heel on their hands. And it was through every one of those stories that evolved through, all the way till now. They got a 5-star match with Johnny Gargano. Andrade Cien Almas, and Johnny Gargano got the first 5-star match in WWE history in, I think it was 8 years, 6 years, something like that. And that's unprecedented. But it must really irk Vince McMahon because it wasn't on a main roster show. it was on what they call the developmental territory. And it was on NXT TakeOver, because TakeOver gives the wrestlers time to work, to develop their characters, and to work out their actual stories. And that's something the main roster doesn't do. Yeah, they have storylines, but they're rehashing of the same story over and over again. The story doesn't have a whole lot of time to develop, and yet you force it into these 2-hour, 3-hour shows and combined with a bunch of other stories that nobody remembers after 3 months, you know? And guys like AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, John Cena, Roman Reigns are in storylines that are half remembered in a couple years. But these are stories that we're seeing in NXT. How many of you guys remember the story of, Kevin Owens coming in and taking out Sami Zayn right after he won the title? Or Finn Balor, returning, not returning, but coming in to save Hideo Itami and then rising through the ranks to take out Kevin Owens. Mm-hmm. Or Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor's feud. Or, right now, you've got Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa. That feud is on fire.
And it's going to be main eventing probably a TakeOver, exceeding an NXT championship match.
And Tommaso Ciampa hasn't had hardly anything to say. He doesn't have to say anything. And that's because his character has given time to develop. And the crowd hates him, but they love him at the same time. And that is good character development. That is good wrestling. Because when you can hate a wrestler and still love him, it means he's developed perfectly. If you just hate him because he's poorly done, if he's a poor wrestler, that's one thing. But he's an excellent heel. An excellent heel. And Johnny Gargano is the perfect foil for that. And they're both going to just beat each other to a pulp at NXT TakeOver. And that's why I can't wait for that. Because guess what? Each one of those matches has a story going into it. And yeah, you might not be a fan of a certain wrestler, but gosh darn it, you're going to be enjoying that match. Shayna Baszler versus Ember Moon, it may not be the most technical match on the card, but you're going to believe it. Because last time, right before Royal Rumble, nobody thought it was going to be a good match. Nobody thought it was going to be great. But Ember Moon told a great story of a underdog champion coming into a match and barely making it through with the skin of her teeth. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to get fired up, but when you see an NXT TakeOver pay-per-view and you see the work those guys put into planning their matches and putting their bodies on the line, you start believing that beyond them as a wrestler, beyond them as a character, that they're a person who are investing in their career and their life into this company, and they are wholly devoted to NXT. I loved when you hear guys like Finn Balor or Samoa Joe or Bobby Roode say, I'm not ready to leave NXT yet because I feel like I could still give back to this brand. Because when they used to say, we are NXT, they included the crowd, they included themselves, they included the brand. There's no loyalty like that to Raw or SmackDown because they just see it as another show. They see it as, I'm just trying to keep on the show. I'm trying to stay on television. When in NXT, if you are part of the top roster and if you are working your way up, even guys like Danny Burch, who disappeared for years in NXT, has risen back up and now getting crowd support. He is now in a tag team, and he was interested in a tag team tournament. I watch NXT religiously because I love seeing the guys who, it surpasses their character. Their ring work is a dedication. And you see it on NXT TakeOvers because guess what? This is their time to shine. This is their time to really put the work in. So no longer are they just a character because the fans see past the character and they see the human being that's devoting their lives to this rather than, the casual fans who are watching the main roster stuff who just see, poorly written characters and poorly written promos and, poorly written matches. Sometimes you get a decent match on the main roster, but how many dud pay-per-views have we had in the past year? Compared to the NXT TakeOvers, where you're lucky if you get a B, because most of them are A's. And so, when it comes to comparing NXT TakeOvers to pay-per-views, it's like night and day. Because, one, you get a half-hearted creative team who is just trying to come up with another story to last another week, to one who's been probably planning for months certain storylines, and are working on developing certain characters. Even Lars Sullivan, who is not that great in the ring, is a believable monster. And it took years for Braun Strowman to rise to that point with a well-developed creative team.
I feel you.
So when NXT TakeOver comes on April 7th, I'm going to be glued to that TV screen because I can guarantee you it's going to be some 4 or 5 star matches every time compared to WrestleMania, which might have some duds. We're already looking at kind of being an okay card. All right, I'm done.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Off the Rails. Everybody that just listened to that, I need you to give me a hashtag good brother to my main man, Will the Thrill. He just brothered softly right there, or brothered hardly, actually. Take a drink, take a shot of that. Take a shot of reality on that one, man. That's some passion right there. But everything you said is true. I mean, there hasn't been one NXT takeover that I can't remember watching, and it's been just about all of them, that I haven't thought this was a hell of a show. Or I don't know if the main roster outperformed them this week or this time. It's literally every single time I go into takeover knowing it's going to be a great show. Anything less than a, A minus is going to be bad. But it's just never going to happen almost. With the main roster, I'm just like, well, I just hope there's one or two good matches on the card. So yeah, that definitely takes my expectations, to a whole other level, and the fact that they just, they do it every time. It's borderline insane, but it's not, because there's just,
oh god,
their stories, everything about them is just, it's believable and it's awesome. Anybody got anything to add to that? How do you follow up to that? That's the curtain call right there.
If you really want to get me upset, I can talk about the NXT call-ups that have just been poorly used on the main roster. But
that's kind of next week when we talk about who should be called up.
Yeah,
you get ready for that one. And next week when we talk about some of the main points that we're going to be talking about next week will be early Mania predictions. Excuse me. Something that Will's going to be getting fired up is that call-ups and who's going to be called up after Mania. But my fiery one is going to be the predictions of Mania. The state of the WWE. That one, guys, I'm telling you right now, you ain't going to want to miss that one. I feel like we've all got really big, strong points on the state of the WWE heading into and going through Mania and Mania season. We do this kind of once every big pay-per-view. But I feel like this one's going to be
I think
a little more fiery.
Keep going,
but I think
Superstar Physiques or something like that.
I think with the podcast getting in for everybody ready for WrestleMania next week, that's going to be really, really good. A really good job there.
I'm just throwing it out there, bro. Just
I think we're good for that one. I think we're good for part one. I think. Anybody else has got something to close on that one?
I'm good.
All right, so since on that note, that's going too much off the rails there, and I'm not ready for that. Yeah, you're throwing that out there. So, for Will the Thrill, for Big Benny Bolt, for myself, K-Dog, Cody, appreciate you guys tuning in to part one of this two-part special leading up to WrestleMania 34, which will be live on the network of WWE Sunday, April the 8th. Special start time at 7 p.m. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Like, share, subscribe to the YouTube page. Like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Outlaws Sports Network on Facebook. Outlaw Sportsnet on Twitter. Share the ever-loving crap out of this video and this podcast. Be a good brother or a good sister. Support us any which way possible. Get our names out there. And hey, if you guys want to ever join us on a podcast, share your thoughts. Comment on how you thought we did. Comment on Will's tangents. Comment on Ben's physiqueness fetish. Comment on my horrible puns here and trying to be the nature who. Woo! Comment on anything. Like I said, if you guys have any questions or if you have anything to add, feel free to do so there on the comments section. For everybody, this is Off the Rails Part 1. We'll see you guys next week for Part 2. Don't miss it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is Randall Beatley, co-founder of OSN and host of the show Unhinged. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this content. Our goal is to bring original, fresh content, and we've taken a little hiatus, and we're planning on coming back. We got a lot of things in the works, so again, I hope you enjoyed this. Be ready for part 2, and Just be on the lookout on the Facebook page and on YouTube. Again, thanks for watching.